My brother got an email a little while ago. My brother, Rabbi Jacobson. I want to read it to you. Very, very special. Dear Rabbi Jacobson, I'm a musician that lives upstate New York. I usually play secular music, secular rock music. Last Thursday, I was doing a performance in a bar in Poughkeepsie. As Israel started attacking and destroying Iran's nuclear weapons, even though nobody in the bar looked Jewish, during the performance I announced what was happening. And I asked that everyone should pray for peace in their own way and make a commitment to do an act of kindness to help make the world a better place. Then I played the song, Shalom Aleichem, and I explained the meaning of the song, that there should be peace, Shalom Aleichem. The next night, this was Thursday, the next night, Friday night, I had a strange dream. Rabbi Leibel Groner, the secretary of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, calls me, and he says in the dream that the Rebbe wanted to thank me because what I said in the bar inspired a Jewish woman who was in the bar to light Shabbos candles. And her candle lighting in Poughkeepsie helped bring extra blessings into the world. It protected people in Israel, and it helped the Israeli Air Force succeed. I wake up Shabbos morning, and I thought, even though it was a nice dream, it's probably nonsense, because I'm not an important enough person to get a message from the Lubavitcher Rebbe in a dream. Today, Sunday morning, which means yesterday, Gimel Tammuz, the Rebbe's yahrzeit, I get an email from a woman in Poughkeepsie. She looked me up on social media, and she says to me, "You inspired me by what you said in the bar," and because of that, she says she lit Shabbos candles to honor Israel. It's the first time she lit a Shabbos candle since her Bat Mitzvah 50 years ago. It's an email my brother got yesterday. So my sister-in-law writes, my brother's wife writes, I'm sharing the following, an email Simon, my husband, received a short while ago in the hope that it will inspire and uplift you as it did me. There's no doubt that Rebbe sees and hears and knows what's going on. How lucky are we to miraculously catch a glimpse from behind the tapestry. Well said. Okay. I thought I wanted to share that with you. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty. Huh? Kannst du nach gehen, ja. Ja. Ah? Ein paar Tage zurück. Ein paar Tage zurück. Ein paar Tage zurück. Ein paar Tage zurück. A few days ago. A paar Tage. A poor Tag Tzedek. No, not protection, no. Huh? Oh, I don't know. Well, Yaakov Elbogen told the whole story. Shabbos. Yaakov Elbogen, you heard his story? Elbogen's story? The lawyer. No, he's a lawyer. He comes Shabbos morning a lot. So he told a story, Shabbos, by Rabbi Yosef Moss's home. He's, grew up in Borough Park. He went to the Yeshiva of Philly, the Yeshiva of Philadelphia, and he became a very successful lawyer, a very special young man. And some years ago, he started to learn with us, started to learn Chassidus, and got more involved in learning Pnimi Satayra. And he said he has a son, Shragi, told him he wants to go to the oil. So he went with his son. It was very, very packed. It was packed. Apparently a whole group from France came, so it was packed. Even when you opened the door, he said you hit, 20 people. So he said, I grew up very comfortable, and I don't like pushing. I don't like pushing my way through. I like being in comfortable places, pampered, enjoying the moment. So I told Shragi, this is not for me. I'll daven outside behind this Hosafai and I'll daven. Son says, you came here already. You came here all the way. You go in. So if you want, go in. Pajalista. So his son, pushes his way in. About mitzvah bachel. Pushes his way in, and he goes outside. Okay. They finish davening, they go home. In the car, what did he say? Why did he put on my... let's hear something from the Rebbe. On the way home to Borough Park, his son says, let's hear something from the Rebbe. We're just at there, let's hear some teaching. So I guess he searched, and a shir of mine came up. So in the car, they start listening. So I tell a story. What's the story I tell? That's what he said. Comes up in the car. I told the story that I heard from somebody. Now, I know this story because I heard it from the guy that it happened to. But I was saying that, I think he said it was a Yud Shvat Fabrengen, right? Oh, it was live. I forgot. It was Yud Shvat. Yud Shvat is the yard site of the Rebbe Rayatz, the day the Rebbe became Rebbe. So I was Fabrengen here in the tent, or one of the rooms. So I told the story. And so on the way back, they were listening to the story. What was the story? There was a Jew, his name was Rabbi Zalman Posner. He lived in Nashville, Tennessee. He went to Nashville, I think, around 1949, Tavshin Test. The previous Lubavitch, Rebbe Rayat sent him there. And he built a shul, a school, a community. I think it's called Akiva Day School. It's still there. And it was a desert. I mean, Tennessee then, even today, Tennessee still has its challenges in infrastructure. But then it was extremely a midbar shmama, a real desolate spiritual desert. And he built it up. He used to come once a year from Nashville, at least once a year. He would come for Yud Shvat to the Rebbe to visit. I heard this from Rebbe Zalman. I said this over at the Fabreng. He says, one year he came, and the shul by the Fabrengen, the Rebbe would Fabreng, Yud Shvat, that's when he would say the Maamar Basi Lagane. It was packed. It was packed. And he decided he's going to sit there, push. He won't be able to concentrate. It's going to be annoying. It's sweating. Upstairs, they used to have a hookup, a speaker. So you can go upstairs to the shul. If you know 770, there's the big shul downstairs. Upstairs is a small shul. And they had from the speaker, from the mic, you can hear the Rebbe upstairs. He said, I'll go upstairs. I'll sit on the bench, comfortably, like a mensch. And I'll be able to listen and have a geschmack Fabrengen. The Rebbe had to listen, he had to concentrate. It was long, deep sichos. It wasn't just nigunim. The nigunim were a very small part. Okay, so I sit there, the whole Fabrengen, I had a good time, I heard everything, and I went home. The next night, before he was going back, actually, he went on Yechidus, he went into the Rebbe. So he says, he came in, the Rebbe says, Rebbe Zalman, wo bist du gewesen nachten? Where were you? Ich hab dich gesucht beim Fabrengen, I was searching for the Fabrengen. In fact, 3 times I asked about you. I asked your father where you are, and I asked your shver. He had a shver of Shlomo Aaron Kazarnovsky who would sit behind the Rebbe. I asked them both where you were, and they said they don't know you. I mean, they don't know. Wo bist du gewesen? So he was honest. He said, I came. It was packed. Ich hab sich nicht gewollt stoppen. I didn't want to push. I went upstairs so I could relax and listen. So he said, the Rebbe looked at him, I'll say it in Yiddish. He says, Rebbe Zalman, ein mal a Jahr hast a Möglichkeit zu stoßen de Chaimer Haguf v'nefesh ha-Bahamas and the life's weg. Once a year, a whole year, you're in a shul on a pedestal. Once a year, you have an opportunity to penetrate the coarseness of the body and the animal soul, and you run away from it. This was the story that Yaakov heard. This he said on Shabbos. He said his son was looking to see if he's listening, like, Tati, because they had an argument before. Anyway. This is what he told on Shabbos. It was very, very meaningful. Right. Okay, so we're holding at the end of the Maamar of the Mekoshesh, that we began. I think this is the 5th shiur. The Maamar from Shlach Tavshin Yud Gimel. In the copies, it's page 9. Right before Se'ivav. Right before Se'ivav. If I do a summation of the Maamar, So by the Rosh Hashanah, we'll still be learning the Shlach Maamar. And since time does move, we should also be moving. So instead of doing a summation of the Maamar, I'm just going to say the last point. And whoever doesn't remember could hear the previous shiurim or chazar on your own, because everything that you learn, you need chazara. If there's no chazara, it just goes in and it goes out, even if at the moment it's inspiring and it's geschmack. When there's no chazara in anything that you learn, it's very fleeting. As I told my students in yeshiva, the first time learning something is not called learning. It's nothing. If somebody learns Gemara once, it's mamish nothing. The second time, you start. So I asked, if that's the case, why do you call it learning? I said, it's only learning in the sense that when you're learning it the second time, it's called a second time. That's what makes it learning, that if you learn it a second time, it's not the first time. So that's the truth about learning. The first time is only that if you learn it a second time, it could be called a second time, not a first time. If you never learned it a second time, then it wasn't even a first time. But that's how learning is. Because it takes, I read a story that a Jew came to Rabbi Elyashiv, and he said that he has a horrible memory, and he needs a eitzah how to remember things. He learns the Gemara, and it goes in from one end, and he right away forgets it. So he has a terrible, terrible mind, it's horrible memory, and he needs a eitzah, something, advice, a blessing. So Elyashiv asked him, how many times do you chazar the Gemara after you learn? So he says, 4 times. So he says, no, you don't have a problem. If you told me that you learn it 60 times, and then you forget it, then you need a problem. You learn it only 4 times and you forget it, says you're a normal person. Yeah. Learn it 60 times, and then if you still have a problem, come. Yeah. He has a point. In the Gemara it says, it's brought in Tanya and Chagiga, that they used to learn everything 100 times. The Gemara says in the time of the Shas, they used to learn everything 100 times. You know that? So Gemara in Chagiga Daf Tesvav. And the Gemara says, Me'e Pamim v'achas, that was above nature. So the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, Perek Tesvav, that the 101th time is more precious than all the 100 times. Because it's going out of the comfort zone. The 100 times is 100 times. The one time, Me'e Pamim v'echad, is more powerful than 100 times. Because 100 times they're used to. He gives... This one you know, yeah. Yeah. The Gemara gives a mashal. The Gemara says that shuk shel chamarim, they would rent out donkeys like taxis. So if the donkey is going, let's say, a kilometer, let's say the donkey is going 10 kilometers, so it's a zuz. Yeah. If it goes 11 kilometers, it's 2 zuz, but that doesn't make sense. 10 kilometers is 1 zuz, so 20 kilometers to be 2 zuz. The answer is that extra parsa, right, that extra kilometer, that's already above its comfort zone. So it cost as much as the entire 10 kilometers it went in the beginning. So that's the idea. The Gemara says that everyone has a chamor, right, a chaymer. It's not stam a mashal of donkeys. Speaking about the chaymer haguf, the chamor, it's all connected, I just realized. Shuk shel chamarim, it's chaymer, right? So it has a certain comfort zone. So sometimes it simply can't. If you're going to torture the chamor and say just go endlessly, that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about torture or doing something unhealthy. We're talking about something that works for the chamor, but it's just, it's stretching, it's exercise. So then, fakert, that becomes the most powerful thing. So you see in learning, people have comfort zones. Like, sometimes a person is having, they're just disintegrating, they need whatever, you have to know the difference. There's a big difference between torture and breaking your nature to the point that you're destroying yourself, and exercising, meaning flexing your muscles and like stretching. There's stretching and there's breaking bones. It's a big difference. It's not the same thing. In Avodas Hashem, it's a very big difference. Sometimes people don't know the distinction. Azav tazav ima, you have to work with the chamor, not break it, but work with it. Expand capacity. Okay, so B'meila, this is all I'm just saying about the need for chazara. Shekayach. So the whole Inyan we're trying to explain here, the whole mahalach is the 2 trees, the Eitz Hadas and the Eitz Hachayim. Right. And the truth is that because this is like the opening story in Chumash, or one of the opening stories in Chumash, the story of the tree, it means that it's a fundamental it's a fundamental story, right? It's obvious that the eating from the Eitz Hadas is such a fundamental story because it affects all of history. And because it affects all of history, so it was obviously something in that process that wasn't just a detail or an incident, even though every incident is significant, but it was, as we call it in English, cataclysmic, historic. It was sweeping, and not just sweeping in this world, but sweeping in all of the worlds. You see from the consequences. So the whole explanation of Eitz Hadas and Eitz HaChaim is a pivotal idea that is central to the whole Yiddishkeit and really to the whole cosmos and the whole avoid of a person and of all people. So the whole explanation here about the two trees is an essential idea that trickles down and expresses and manifests itself in so many different aspects and really in all aspects. And the real Nakuda was that as we learned in all the shiurim, that there's two paths, there's two aspects in Avodah, two pathways in Avodah Hashem. As he calls it, Avodah b'medidav hagbala and Avodah shalamayla b'medidav hagbala. One is based on an expectation of the self that is finite. I see myself in very finite terms, and I need to protect that finiteness. I see myself within parameters, and I need to protect those parameters. Yeah. Talking about a comfort zone, it's also connected, right? I have my Me'eh Pamim. It may be 100 times, but I'm not going to go beyond that. As he gives all the examples in Torah and in Avodah and in Milas Chesadim, I may go 100 times, which is impressive, right? And for another person who only does it 4 times, 100 times is like, wow. But this person knows 101, no way. I think the Marsha brings, and it's also from the Baal Shem Tov also talks about it, Me'eh Pa'amim ve'echad means you could learn something 100 times, but what you're missing is the echad, the oneness, Hashem echad. Me'eh Pa'amim ve'achas is you brought the echad into the Me'eh Pa'amim, and that's really the whole nekuda. The oneness is l'mayla b'medidav hagbala. Hashem echad means it's infinite, and therefore it permeates every space and every time because it's complete oneness. Everything is part of that. It has no limitation. That's the only thing that can be echad. Anything that has a limitation, it's not echad. Because there's certain parts that are not connected to it. There's certain places it doesn't reach. Like we learned in Basi Lagani, there's l'mayla adein ketz, l'mata adein tachlis. So b'medidav hagbala means I'm protecting my parameters, whatever that looks like. And I operate from that space. And my entire life, I could live from that space and I could do good things. It's not, as we're learning in this Maamar, this is not a distinction necessarily between good and evil. It's between good, but the good is defined by parameters, by finiteness. And therefore, even when I reach out or I reach in, it's always limited by that. And as he goes through all the examples, how it expresses itself in actuality in Torah, Avodah, Milas Chesadim, how it expresses itself in emotions, in love and awe. As he said, there's Ava, but the Ava is the person still remains b'mitziyusai u'b'yeshusai. I still remain in my ego, in my comfort zone. There's love, there's connection, there's also yira, there could be fear, awe, in a positive way. But I still remain in my mitziyus and my yeshus. Like we spoke about Ava, right? There's a love because how good it is for me. And when it's not good for me, then I look what is good for me. And that's why it has a fragility to it. Yeah, we spoke a lot about relationships in family and different types of relationships. As long as the relationship is working for me, as long as you're giving me nachas, you have it with parents and children, you're giving me nachas, I love you. Not only I love you, I love you to death. And you mean it. It's not that you don't mean it. But watch out if you don't give me nachas. It's funny what happened. Yesterday your love was infinite. Of course it was infinite, but it had a certain condition. And it really takes a lot to crack open and become extremely, extremely vulnerable and surrender every vestige of ego. And it's very hard because why should I? No, why should I? Why? I love you because it's geschmack for me. It's toiv loy. M is good. Like M is good. Me is good. But that really also means that you never touched yourself. It's not only the other person is missing it. You never touched yourself. You never found the capacity in yourself that's infinite. That's really the casualty. First and foremost, casualty is not only the person who's not getting that love, like your child. The casualty is also the father or the mother who's capable of giving that love, but they don't know that part of themselves. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. They're enslaved. It hurts them. It not only hurts the other person. So, oh, when you'll shape up, I'll start loving you. People don't always realize that. Our relations to others is a reflection of where we are internally. My limited interaction with you that is so defined by my comfort zone is because I never touched those parts in myself that really reflect my own infinity. So that's the second type of avodah, l'mayla mimedidav hagabala. And he goes through the whole Seder Ishtalshel is higher and higher and higher and higher and deeper, the way it's in avodah, the way it's in the Izbainus, the way it's in the Spheres. And the ultimate conclusion of it all is that whenever our avodah is only b'medidav hagbala, it's basically reducing God to a structure. And whenever we reduce Hashem to a structure, we deprive ourselves from touching who we really are and what reality really is. Because the essence of reality is not finite, it's infinite. And the essence of the soul is not finite, it's infinite. And the essence of the body is also not finite, it's infinite. So whenever I insist on remaining in those patterns, in those comfort zones, I deny myself the ability to touch the texture of Ein Sof, the texture of infinity. And it's a form of enslavement. Much of life, I would say, and this may not be so easy to say or to hear, but much of life is Koil Doidi Doifik. The voice, the sound of Doidi, of my beloved one, Doifik, banging on the door. Pischili, open up the door. Or in other words, crack open. Pischili, open up the door. Let the walls come down. Often, when somebody's banging on the wall, what do? You fortify the wall more. You bring in a construction guy, and you say, make this wall thicker, so that I don't even hear the banging. So the banging becomes harder and harder and harder. And I fortify it even more. I fortify myself even more, sensing the danger. And then there's an earthquake. There's an earthquake, right? And on one level you could say, wow, look how cursed my life is. On a deeper level, what's really happening is, it's a deep divine invitation to start living. It's a divine invitation to go to the space of an ego death and actually become a reflection, a conduit of reality, going into the flow of divine energy, which is Ein Sof. It's not an easy transition. Going from a place of Medidav Agbala is essentially a quantum leap. From a place in which I'm protected behind my walls, whatever those walls may be. They may be, Meya Palmim. It's 100 times. It's nice walls. I live in a palace. Mela, if you live in a closet, you live in solitary confinement, you live in a cave, of course you want to get out. Very often the prison is luxurious prison, right? They spoke Shabbos about the difference between Riker Island and Otisville. There was big difference, huh? Big difference between Riker Island and Otisville. Both are prisons, but you can't compare. One place, when I went to Otisville, they told me they're going around the island and I said which dips they want for Shabbos. And they showed me all the dips they have for Shabbos. It was impressive. They were, which dip you want? This dip, jalapeno dip, that dip, that dip, that dip. Baruch Hashem, I was happy for. I'm not minimizing. Prison is prison, but the point is, when somebody is in a bar, in a pit, it's obvious that it's prison. Sometimes my prison is beautiful. I created a beautiful palace, may upon it. But essentially, the person is stuck, and I operate from that space. The heart is not open. It's not expansive. It's in a place of Medidav Hagbala. So life knocks kol doidi doifik. It pounds on the wall until it breaks it. Pischili. Open up. Do it yourself. Do it yourself. Open it up. Open it up. Because only when I come out of that space can I truly be alive. And I'm truly manifesting life. Because what is life? Life is the energy of Ein Sof. And it exists in everything. In your love. In your awe. in your learning, in your davening, in your kindness, in your relationships. On every level, every strata of the psyche and of existence, thoughts and words and behaviors and emotions and awareness. That's what the Maamar goes through. It's always, my awareness is what triggers emotions. My emotions is what creates behavior. So it's always like a domino effect. When there's medidav hagbala in the hisbainanus, there's medidav hagbala in the midas, there's medidav hagbala in the machshava dibura maisa. That's the depth of the Maamar, how he goes through those two tracks on all levels, and it begins already in the spheres. It's not the person. Medidav hagbala begins by Hashem, as he goes through the whole union of Malchus and Biyah, etc. And the key always in this area is, the hardest thing, and that's surrender. What Chassidus calls bittul. Because bittul, and as we always say, what bittul means, right? Bittul really means graduating from being finite to being infinite. I think that's one of the best definitions for bittul, and it just came into my head. And it's not from me, I promise you. Bittul is graduating from being finite to being infinite. That's what it means. But that's scary, because when I was finite, at least I knew who I was, like, these are my walls, this is who I am. Yeah, I have control. I think I have control, let's put it that way. That's why bittul is so scary. I want to have control. Control is a way of navigating the world from a place of perceived safety. It's all perceived, it's not real. I have control, like you're a tiger. Actually, mitzvah DNA, you're closer to being a tiger than me having control. So, the belief that I have control is a dimyan. The fact that I crave control, that's not a dimyan. That guides my whole life. You understand what I'm saying? Huh? Yeah. The fact that I have control, that's an illusion, but my craving for it and my desperation for it, and my making sure that I position myself and my posture remains one, that I have control, that's as real as it gets. That's the whole world of shells, of husks. And it's very normal. And all anger, all the midos, all the emotions of the nefesh habahamis that develop are often just about control, including jealousy. What do you think jealousy is? It's a form of control. Hatred. It's a form of control, animosity, all these things, right? Of course, anger, these are forms of control. Control doesn't only mean I own you. Control means I position myself in a way that I could tell myself I'm good, I could tell myself I'm a victim, I can tell myself whatever it is, I avoid getting hurt as much as possible. And it makes sense. It makes sense that people develop these postures. Nobody wants to get hurt. You've got hurt enough. Right? If I know who you are and you're danger, I won't get hurt anymore. I know. If you remain locked up and you throw away the keys, nobody can get in. I'm a chaya. Much better. That's why we numb. That's why we freeze. That's why we detach. Yeah. Even anxiety. Anxiety is not evil. Anxiety is your animal soul saying, danger zone, danger zone, danger zone. Don't open your mouth. Stay behind closed doors. Be hypervigilant. Yeah, it's dangerous places, dangerous people. And this not only when you're coming into a chasana with 2,000 people, it could be in your own dining room when your child walks in, or your spouse walks in, or somebody else walks in. But these are all the messages to say, stay small, safe, and in control. And this develops. These are defense mechanisms that develop survival skills, coping mechanisms. Every person according to their capacity. And sometimes they can even be cultivated in a very nice way. A person becomes moral, and a person becomes charitable, and a person is a mensch. That's the whole point here. We're not talking about, obviously you have a situation where to protect themselves, people become monsters, and they become, impossible. They become impossible, whatever they're involved in, whether it's thievery or dishonesty or deception or crazy addictions or not crazy addictions. But, aggressive. Or the opposite, completely depressed and shut down, which is a different type of aggressiveness. The whole aggressiveness is towards you, right? You kill every last emotion. You're aggressive towards yourself. Yeah, depression is aggression. It's just not to others, it's to yourself. So you can even say, I'm a good guy. In order to avoid hurting other people, I became depressed. Somebody once told me they grew up in a home where the father would have rage outbursts. Those who grew up in such homes know it's not an easy thing. It's a very, very, for a child, children need safety. They need consistency. They need to know people are responsible. For a child, it's very hard when they're given the responsibility to take over from the adults and make sure Tati and Mommy are okay. It's one of the most difficult things. And if you're the oldest in the family, so you took on that responsibility first, it can be very, very damaging. Yeah. So this person said that their father would have these crazy outbursts of rage. Crazy. And it was horrible the person is very, very, very refined person, a very sensitive, edel human being. And he said it was so painful, it was so devastating. So at some point, this person made a vow to themselves growing up. I will never, ever, ever be like this, ever. And how? How? I will make sure not to feel what I'm feeling. I'll make sure, not to feel what I'm feeling, to not be embodied, because if I don't feel, I won't have these feats of rage. So their whole system was designed in order to avoid really, really feeling. Because if you start feeling what you're feeling, who knows what type of malach hamavis you're going to become. And imagine a person who's capable of feeling and wants to and needs to feel. V'hafta Hashem Elokecha. V'hafta, right? V'hafta l'recha kamoicha. But their whole system says absolutely not. So here is a classic example where, of course, I'm living behind 100 walls in order to, not even for myself, to protect others, because I know how much I suffered from that father. I don't want other people to have that, including his own children. So what did he do? He locked up everything. So now he deprived them, and for noble angelic intentions, from having an emotionally connected father. Because he loved them. You understand? This is the sadness. He loved them. He didn't want they should have what he had. So they shouldn't have a father who screams and rages and can throw things, whatever. He told me all these stories. It's not negay of the details, but you get the point. Right. Now it completely wasn't a choice. It wasn't like he sat down at 9 years old and said, I have Bechira. Right. This is going to come from choice. This is what we spoke Shabbos. Right, we spoke Shabbos how to make choices in life. Yeah, when you had your Tchiyas HaMesim. Yeah. Yeah, I said over what I heard from Rabbi Pinson, Rabbi Ubacharta B'chayim, that the only way you're going to choose things is if you're choosing life, because to choose, you must be in a place in which you're regulated, you're mindful, you're anchored in your true self, and now you're making a choice. That can only be B'chayim. Ubacharta, the only way I could really choose is if I'm choosing life. If I'm choosing the opposite of life, it's always a reaction. It's always I'm in default mode. I'm in cruise control. Crisis mode, yeah. Consciously or unconsciously. So this person, they didn't make a choice. This was the best thing they can do based on their understanding with the tools they had, and it was coming from love. You understand? It was coming from caring. I want to avoid this catastrophe. I know how much I suffered from it. I don't want my children to suffer. So many decisions that good people make for their children is to avoid what they experience from their parents. In that process, however, what often happens is I shut down so much of myself, and it's nobody's fault. And the children don't understand what's happening because even the parents don't understand what's happening. These are all classic or not classic examples of what it means that my entire life could be governed by Medida v'Hagbala. The question is what Medida v'Hagbala means. It could be in a very, very edel, very subtle, very, very high madrega, and sometimes in very, very lower madregas. But the Nekuda is always that I'm stuck in that paradigm and it's very hard to get out of it. Now, what this person needs to learn is that they can trust themselves. They're good. They're good. The moment they can trust themselves, they can trust their emotions. They're not defined by their wounds anymore. And now they can trust their feelings and trust their love. And they have the capacity to engage in emotions without these feats of rage. But that's a very deep process, yeah.
You said something more profound than liberating on Shabbos.
Okay.
So, the Chaim is the only choice you really have. Everything else is pre-programmed.
Yeah, everything else is pre-programmed.
In a way, it's the choice of Hashem.
Everything else is God's choice.
It's Hashem is doing
yeah.
even more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So that was for
Yes,
So
yes,
like
yes.
for me,
It's letting go. It's let God made his choices. Like it's not your choice. Everything else was his choice. Everything that's pre-programmed. A woman once sent me a note. She says, of course my mother knows how to push all my buttons. She installed them. God installed the buttons. He installed them. Your mother, God, your mother, whatever. Your mother installed the buttons which were installed in her. So it's knowing that difference. The only place of real bechira is b'chaim.
so in fact that the father outraged and was angry, that was also pre-programmed.
Yeah, of course.
So the only time it was not programmed when he stopped doing it. That was
Yeah.
his.
The father's rage, from PTSD, he was in some war somewhere. I don't know, one of the wars. I don't know if it's what age, this Korean, whatever, one of the wars. You know, it's what was he responding to? I don't know. The time where we start having choices when we could realize all of this, we can really, really realize all of this. And when we realize how much choice we don't have, we can realize, now I can have choice. As long as people think they have choice, they have very little choice. Because part of the programming is you think you have choice. It's like, oh no, I'm a free person. I make my decisions. That's part of the dignity I give myself. I'm in control. Of course I have choice. My trauma doesn't tell me that I'm completely robotic. I am completely a shell of myself. It doesn't say that. It says, of course you have choice. That's part of being a chashuv person. Well, I'm an eved. I'm not an eved. My whole life I'm searching to be independent. So it takes a lot of surrender to say, oh, I really don't have choice. Wow. All these things, all these internal mechanisms and reactions were installed. I have almost no choice. The moment you realize that, for the first time, you start having choice.
Actually, the choices you have before the making conscious decision to do the right thing, they're all choices, but they're pre-programmed choices. That program already exists.
Yeah.
The only thing that in a way doesn't exist, you need to override that with your own choice. And the hero is in a way overrides everything.
Yeah.
Which is the bit, I guess.
Yeah, everything that's pre-programmed, my choice is just to see that they're there. They're really there. And I could stay there, or I could notice them, I can observe them. You know, I quote often from Viktor Frankle, between stimuli and response, there's a millisecond, there's a fraction of a second. And that's where all human freedom exists. The stimuli was not my choice. The reaction is not my choice. But between the two, there's a split second. Stimuli is what comes into me. You send me a text. You send me a text. I meet you. You say something. You look at me a certain way. You don't say good Shabbos. I walked and you walked there and you didn't say good Shabbos. Now it happens to be, that you were vertracht. But I don't know that you were vertracht. I say you have too of a big ego to say good Shabbos to me. You understand? Or you don't like me. Or you got upset because Thursday I was by the bim and you walked by and I was talking to somebody and I didn't give you so you're probably upset, so now you're not telling me good Shabbos. You understand what just happened? Taka, why didn't you tell me good Shabbos? He's not here Shabbos. So that's the stimuli, right? So the reaction is, okay, now he's upset at me. So either I get upset at you, or I'm feeling shame, or I'm feeling guilt, whatever it is, but there's a whole boom. Now it has nothing to do with what happened. You poshet vertracht. You vertracht. I was once giving, years ago, I gave a woman's class, and there was a woman who would come, and then she stopped showing up. I didn't see her for 2 years. After 2 years, I meet her in the street. I say hi. And then I innocently said, we miss you. We haven't seen you. Don't lie. You don't miss me. I was surprised. I'm like, why are you saying that? And what happened 2 years? What do you mean? You don't know why I'm not there? I said, no. From when you insulted me in public. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I insulted. Don't make believe you don't know. It was a public, and you shamed me in public. And I had to really surrender my expectations and my anger. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but maybe you would tell me because I don't know what you're talking about. So finally, I'm not sure she believed me, but a little bit maybe she believed me. So she agreed to tell me. I was once talking about Tanya chapter 7. And over there, the Alter Rebbe says that whenever you eat, every piece of food is klipas noiga, meaning it's neutral energy. If you eat it with kavana, with mindfulness, with spiritual consciousness, you elevate it back to the source. All this sparks in the nutrients of the food. And if I eat it as a glutton, on the contrary, I degrade the food. So whenever you're eating, and I was talking about that in the shir. You know, those who sit here know, when I teach, I look at people. So she said, as you were talking about this, you were staring at me. And you think it's not hard enough for me that I'm 100 pounds overweight? And now you're talking about this, staring at me, embarrassing me in public. Of course, I didn't show up for 2 years. Huh? Yeah. So I learned a few lessons at the time. And one of the lessons was, what I say and somebody hears has nothing to do with each other. Nothing to do with each other. It was futile to explain that I look around the room and sometimes my eyes hit somebody and I continue the sentence, and it's not because I have a bug in their dining room and I know their conversation last night and therefore I'm trying to talk about it. But it was such a wound. It's like if you have a sunburn, right, and somebody pats you on the back, they mean to say hi. But if you have a sunburn, it kills. And I understand that. Well, we all have that in different areas. We all have sunburns. And I may be patting you on your back, or you may be patting me on my back. You're trying to say, good morning, I love you. And what I'm hearing is, I hate you, you're a sick person, I want to wound you. So that's the stimuli. The reaction is already pre-installed, based on who knows what. Between those two things, there's a moment of choice. And say, you know what? Maybe I could respond in the unpredictable way. maybe not, but maybe. Maybe I could surrender all of those coping responses and do something new, creative. That's where it happens. The only way, the only space of that bchira is b'chaim, if you're choosing life.
Before he was almost dying, after his wife.
Viktor Frankle. Yeah. Viktor Frankle was in Auschwitz. He was a student of Freud. He was in Auschwitz. He was a Jew, obviously. And he argued with Freud. Freud was his Rebbe. Freud was his teacher. But he completely deviated from Freud, and he felt that if Freud would have been in Auschwitz, he would have seen levels of people that he could never see on his couch in Vienna, that Viktor Frankl did see, because he saw what it looks like when people are stripped away from everything. They have literally nothing left, not even their body, their skeletons. Of course, their family and their money and their identity and their freedom and their abundance, food, everything, but everything is deprived. And a lot of his, what's called logotherapy, is based on his experiences. Yeah. It's not for now. There's an unbelievable story of Viktor Frankl and the Lubavitcher Rebbe. I don't know if it's an incredible story. I heard it from the Shliach of Vienna, Rabbi Yankel Biederman, so Einikol of the Lelever Rebbe. Whatever, incredible story. It is there, yeah. There was a woman from, I don't remember all the details, he told it to me many years ago, but there was a woman, they called her Mrs. Mozart. She came from a Vishnitz family. She left, she was a brilliant opera singer. So she left the Chassidish environment. She went to Vienna. She sang the concert in 1938. Hitler was in the audience. And she was warned about the Anschluss, that Germany is going to conquer Vienna. So she escaped and she was saved. She came to America. And they called her Mrs. Mozart. Mrs. Mozart, because she was like a Mozart prodigy. Exceptional talent. And she lived in Detroit. They called her Mrs. Mozart. She lived in Detroit, and in the 1950s, she decided she wants to go back to Vienna, where she was as a child and as a teenager, and it was amazing years for her till she had to escape as a Jew. And she I don't know who arranged it, but she went to see the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Rebbe then asked if she could go meet Viktor Frankl on his behalf. Like 1958. in the 50s, 57, 58. It's an incredible story. I heard this from Rabbi Biederman. When he came to Vienna, she came to see him. He came, I think, in 1979, 80. So she says, what are you doing here? He says, the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent me here as a shliach. She says, no, I'm the first shliach to Vienna. I'm the Rebbe's first shliach to Vienna. You're like, what? So she says, in the 50s, he sent me to go. And it's a ganze Meise. And nobody knew about Frankle then. He wasn't today. He's world famous. So he says, tell him, soll nicht ne Spal werden. Tell him in my name, he shouldn't be affected by anybody and anything. He should continue, and he's going to have unbelievable atzlacha. He's going to become world renowned if he continues. But he should continue. He shouldn't get in a spal. Anyway, she went. She went to the university. They said that he resigned. He's out of the university. So she went till she found him. She came into the house. They would slum him in the house because his second wife was a non-Jew and she was a Christian. So he said, for sure I made a mistake. And then she found him. And she told him the message. And it's a long story, but what she told Rabbi Wiedemann is that Viktor Frankl said that the whole establishment of psychiatry and psychology in Vienna were students of Freud. And his idea was that the man's deepest search is a search for meaning, which is really a search for truth, for authenticity. It's not just the sexual crazed monkey that Freud spoke about. The person is really searching for meaning, which of course the ultimate meaning is only Hashem. So they completely not only marginalized him, but they scoffed him, and he was about to give up. You can't fight the whole, you can't fight the whole world. You want to be a professor. You see how corrupt the whole world of professors are. Everything is tenure. They're litzanei hador, the professors. Banda litzana. Right? So he completely surrendered, and he told her, like, wow, she mamish came at the last moment, and he completely went back, and then his book became a bestseller. He has a book. So Rabbi Biederman said, I didn't know, Viktor Frankl wouldn't even come to Shul Yom Kippur. Maybe he would completely not part of the Jewish community. But when I came, he started to send me money to Chabad of Vienna. And I couldn't understand why the guy was completely segregated from the Jewish community. Why is he sending money? So I called him. I asked Frankl, you don't show up to anything. He didn't want to be associated with. So he says, when I heard that you're Rabbi Schneerson's shliach here, I'm sending you money. And he told me that his words in German, in Yiddish were, Ich will eibig sein dankbar. Ich will eibig sein dankbar. I will ever be thankful for him for what he did in the 50s. What am I bringing out here with all of this? It's a long mice. It's kedai to research it, but it's a guy to look it up. But the Indian is that, what was his milchama? His milchama was, essentially, to put it in very simple English, in very, very simple terms, it's a much lower level than the Maamar, but I think it's important to put it this way. Is a person a machine or is a person infinite? That's really the question. If a person is a machine, a very sophisticated machine, artificial intelligence, a supercomputer, amazing, but it's a machine. A machine by definition has parameters. The only thing that's not a machine is the creator who created machines. So the question is, are we a reflection of the creator or are we machines? You understand the question? If you're a machine, it changes everything. A sophisticated machine, a brilliant machine, an interesting machine, you have to figure out how all the buttons work. And that could take 100,000 years to figure out the buttons. They say it's taking already 25 billion years and we still didn't figure it out. But you have to figure out the buttons. At the end of the day, figure out the buttons and then you'll be happy. And you fix the machine, you fix it. And that's really what the function of medicine is and psychology is. It's to fix the machine. Of course, you have to know the machine. Some people know it better, some people not. And we're still figuring out the machine every year.
The Neuralink even fixes the brains.
Yeah.
Whatever, even if a person misses limbs or...
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and all neuroscience, and of course, neurolinks, and all it's really all going into that space. And then there's another approach. The other approach is essentially, you're infinite. That's based on emunah. That's based on the idea that you're chelek elokam mimal, tzelem elokim. That there's the divine. The divine is not a machine. If there is the divine, he created matter, he created space, he created time. So he must be beyond the system. He can't be a system. That's what infinity is. That's what eternity is. Right? And that's at the core of everything. It's just that I was sent into machinery. I was sent into structure. I was sent there. Like we always say, I was sent. It's a shlichus. It's not who I am. It's a very big difference. And therefore, as long as you don't touch this spot in you, as long as you don't touch this point in you, you're not touching yourself. You're actually depriving yourself from your truth. And every day, I need to surrender this truth again and again. I'm not a machine. What does it mean to be a machine? A machine has no bchira. A machine responds the way a machine responds. I cannot ask the machine to do something else. You don't get upset at your phone, right? Because you put it in water and it stops working. You don't get upset at your phone that you pressed send and it sent. What do you want? There's buttons. You press this, it's going to be send. You press this, it's going to be unsend. This will be a text. This will be an emoji. This emoji means I like you. This emoji means get out of my life. What do you want from the emoji? Yeah, that's how machines work. And many scientists, psychologists in our generation were invested in this philosophy, because if you're invested in this philosophy, at the end of the day, really, as Darwin wrote in his book, what's his book? Origin of Species, that the fundamental conclusion of his idea of evolution is that fundamentally there's no difference between the human being and the animal. And he understood that was his conclusion. That fundamental, of course there's many differences, but fundamentally there's no difference. You're just an animal, you're a ferd b'tzuras adam. Fine. So what is really saying deep down, that's who the person is. And mitzad nefesh habahamis, it looks that way. That's why it's so convincing. It feels that way, it looks that way.
Also, it's something that they can touch.
And something you can touch and you could control. A machine you could control. You may need to learn more. You may need to get your PhD. You may need to learn another 40 years. I'm fine. But you could touch it and your children will get it and the next generation, and that's how you go. And somebody will control the machine at the end of the day. The tragedy is that all of this is galus. It's alienation from self. It's alienation from self.
Or until we touch the point that we realize that we live in the reality of God.
Yeah.
Because when you touch very deep, then
Yeah. When you touch the deepest button, you teach the dubbin, it's called the button of surrender. You could surrender all the buttons and you realize that you're in the reality of Ein Sof. You're l'mayla m'medidav hagabala. Of course we have buttons and we're installed and we have programs and we're finite and we react, and I can't do anything about that. The stimuli is going to create reaction. But when I can every single day go into and lean into that deeper transcendent space, ubacharta b'chayim. Only when you believe that there's something called life, godliness, can you actually believe that there's choice. Yeah. The button haklali, yeah, Maamar hakoilel. We learned it before Shavuos. The Maamar hakoilel, the button haklali, bereishis, chachma. That's chachma, koyachma. The Moreh Nayim writes, Reb Nachum of Chernobyl writes that the Rambam asks, everybody asks, how can Hashem punish Paroi when he said, I'm taking away his choice? V'chizakti es leiv Paroi. So how could you punish somebody? I take away your choice and then I punish you. That's cruel. It's like punish a lioness every time she chases a gazelle. What do you want from the lioness? What do you want? She learned Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, Hilchas Gneva, Hilchas Gzela, Hilchas Ritzicha. What do you want? Teach her Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and then have tainas. Was willst du from the lioness? Change her DNA, and then it's not fair, right? The Gemara says that Eve said this: Barasat Tzaddik and Barasat Rishayim. You create people this way. Stop! Don't play games. So the Moreh Nayim says, it's a starke kasha, right? So the Moreh Nayim says something incredible. Hashem was actually explaining to Moshe why they should leave Mitzrayim. V'chizakti es leiv Paroi is not a punishment, it's a condition. He says, let me show you what it means to live in Mitzrayim. Look at the king. The king of Mitzrayim is the king who has no bechira. That's what it means to live in Mitzrayim. To live in Mitzrayim means you're completely living without choice. And the word Mitzrayim means meitzarim ugvulim. He was actually explaining to him what it means to leave Egypt. To leave Egypt means that you start having choices. What does that mean? Why? That's the idea of b'charta b'chayim. Because when I'm living in exile, what does it mean I'm living in exile? I'm just responding to the situation, whatever's going to make me feel more comfortable now. So now I need to shut down. Now I need to be aggressive. Now is fight. Now is flight. Now is freeze. Now is fawn. Now I'll be a people's pleaser. Now I'll go into anxiety. Now I'll go into depression. Now I'm angry at you. Now I'm jealous of you. Now I'm overwhelmed. Now I'm anxious. Now I just shut down. Boom. Basically, I'm just the life of Pare. I'm living out Pare's dream. And everything is in that orbit. Yeah, I can go on vacations. I can make money. I can be powerful. I can win a Nobel Prize. But I'm completely stuck in Mitzrayim. Says, what does it look like to have a geula from Mitzrayim? For the first time in your life, you'll actually have a choice. You'll make a choice. Because to make a choice, I have to be completely regulated, completely mindful, completely anchored in myself. How can I do that when I'm wounded? Only when I could connect to the divine in me. And from there, there's a choice. So this is my short summation of the two different tracks. So the whole chiddush of this Maamar is now we'll understand the Eitz Hadas. What's the Eitz Hadas? The Eitz Hadas is not evil. That's how he started. The Targum Oneness says it's a tree that allows you to know the difference between Tov and Ra. So it's actually a good tree. It's a holy tree. It's in Gan Eden. It's actually a Gan Eden tree. It's not a Gehenim tree. What Eitz Hadas accomplished, or didn't accomplish, was something different, much more subtle. Eitz Hadas didn't say there's no good and evil. No, Eitz Hadas says there's good and evil. But Eitz Hadas says there's good and evil because of Das. There's good and evil because of my finite calculations. It's the Das that defines the Tov and the Ra. It's my Seichel that defines the Tov and the Ra. The moment Eitz Hadas did that, it took it from a place of infinity and put it into a place of control. Once you did that, now from the hishtalshalus of that could come out complete Ra. But it doesn't begin that way. What Eitz Hadas Tov Ra means, the necessity to be able to live a moral life, but from a place in which I think I control it. And the first and deepest form of control is the mind, comprehension, seichel. Because when you understand something, it's the deepest form of control. Right? The real people who control the world are those who know the system. When you know the system, when you know the back-end system, you create the programming. Everybody else is just victims of your programming. That's why the worst thing in life is when you think you have it figured out. When you think you have figured out the Tov and the Ra. Yeah. Why? Because then I'm really stuck. Then I'm stuck in the fact that I believe that I control. And that can be the most dangerous form of egotism, the egoic mind. Because it's not a dangerous mind in the sense that I'm not sinister, I'm not a monster. We're not talking about a Rasha Merusha, a sick, evil person. We're talking in a very, very subtle place. I know the difference between good and evil. But what the snake wanted is that Adam and Chava should know the difference between good and evil. In other words, it should be filtered through their knowledge and digested through their knowledge, through their das, and that's what governs the system. And when that governs the system, essentially what happens is the person is in that modality. And they're not in flow anymore.
Like the Schrodinger's cat, right? Knowing it is what creates.
Yeah.
Knowing about
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what creates.
Right. Yeah. Let's see inside. Vav. Al pi kol anal yuvanin in the chet etzadas af shekol man da'achil minei mafrish ben tavel bish. Even though the Targum Yerushalmi says whoever eats from it knows the difference. He's separating good and evil. So this is a good thing. You want your children to know the difference between tav and bish. Everybody should eat from the etzadas. She's a winyan sheb madregas hakdusha. Etzadas is kedusha. It's not klippah. It exists in Gan Eden. It's part of Gan Eden. It's part of paradise. Knowing good and evil is not, it's not Gehenim, it's Gan Eden. It's Eitz Hadas Tov. It's all through the filter of measurements and limitations. Hainu shavdo lebin tov lera ein ele mitzado lefi oifen achilas apedes v'suloi weite geternit v'lachein efshe sheyistayif mizera. There's a separation, but it's based on how much of the fruits I ate. I digested it, which is a metaphor. I eat it, it's a meal, it goes into me, it goes into my system. I'm comfortable with it. Weiter geht in it. Further than that, I'm not going to go. Atkan hakof zayin. We're not going anymore. I danced enough around the bimmer. We're done. Schon getanzt. I have my checklist. It's fine. Weiter geht in it. What does it mean, weiter geht in it? I'm not ready to stretch. I'm not ready to stretch. And one person's stretch is for another person not a stretch. Depends who you are, right? Yesterday's stretch is today's prison. Today I need to stretch again. Today's stretch will be tomorrow's prison. Tomorrow I need to stretch again. It's very, very relative to where a person is. It's like lifting weights. You know, one person can bench press 300 for the other person. They're going to die. But if they bench press 25, that's the question. The question is not how much. The question is, am I geht weiter? This person says, weiter geht in it. They put it in Yiddish because, you know, you can't say that in Lashon Kodesh. The Maamar was said in Yiddish. Weiter, he's not going to go further. And not further, I don't go. The extra mile, I won't go. Because that extra mile requires me to crack open, and I'm going to go till that. Maybe I'll expand my wall. I'll build a bigger kitchen, a bigger dining room. I'll build another floor. But I'm not going to go outside of my walls. Was nicht geht von mir, yeah. That's where I'm stuck. So yeah, there's Tov and Ra, but it's all in the ofen of Das. And he says from here starts the Churban. Not because it's Ra, it's not. But Efshe Yistayef Mizera. Yistayef Mizera means the branches, the results, the offspring will be now. And this is a very, very deep place. It's an energetic place. In other words, it's not something you could say clear and point out. Right, it's not like it's a curriculum, because it's a very, very deep space in the person of how much are you ready to reinvent yourself? How much am I ready to surrender the truth that I'm not a machine? It's more scary than we imagine. Bittul is very, very scary. It's liberating because the moment you give it up, you're in flow. You're not up. Oh, thank God, I'm normal. Wow, you're in flow. God chooses, you choose. Of course you choose. The moment you're divine, you choose. And then you always choose you always know what to choose. You choose connection. You choose truth. When you say choice, what it really means is not that you may choose this, you may choose that. It means that it's coming from a complete place of openness and authenticity. There's no blockage that's dictating it. You're completely, completely open. This is where the tree of life comes in. Eitz HaChayim is the tree of life. It's not the tree of Das. The tree of Das tells you the difference between Tov and Ra. The tree of life is you are life. You're in the flow of life. You're not stuck. You don't take life, hijack it, put it into a box and say, I own life. The moment you do that, you're not alive. It's like taking electricity. You know, it's like, imagine I get jealous from the source of electricity. So what do? The wire has electricity in it, right? So I take the wire. I now chop and say, I own electricity. Right? How much electricity do you own? How much? There's no such a thing. You don't own it. You channel it, or you detach yourself from it. You don't own it. There's no such a thing. The moment you own it, it's not it anymore. That's even electrons. We're talking even electrons, which are not the source of life. They're creations.
You don't want to be connected to that.
Yeah. Very good. You don't want to hug it too tight either, right? Like the story of Chelem, you know, they didn't have a moon for Kiddush Levana, right? We know the story. So they hired somebody to stand all night with an open barrel of water, and the moment he sees the moon reflected in the water, he should cover it with a lid and save the moon till the next day. And that's what he did, and he covered it with a lid, and the next day the whole city came for Kiddush Levana. The next night they opened the bucket and the moon was gone. Until today they're searching who stole the moon in Chelm. But what seems like a Chelm story is actually a pretty relevant story. It's true with happiness, it's true with love, it's true with relationships, it's true with yourself. Eitz HaChaim is a tree of life itself. Nothing. The moment I take it, I understand why I want to take it. I want to have it. I want to say I have it. I have it. I get it. I have this. I figured it out. I own it. I control it. What does that do? It interrupts me from life. Now, it may be that right now I'm actually making, I'm in a pretty good place and I'm making good decisions. And I know the difference between Tov and Ra. But it's coming from that space of Medidah v'Hagbalah. So the eight says, go for the Eitz HaChaim. And then he says, and then you can go back to the Eitz HaDas. We have nothing against the Eitz HaDas. This is very, very important. This is not a war against Das. This is not a war against the mind. This is not a war against systems, structures, boundaries, parameters. Boundaries are healthy, parameters are healthy, structures are healthy. Das is blessing, a mind is a blessing. But the question is, do you eat the Eitz HaDas after you eat the Eitz HaChaim, or do you eat the Eitz HaDas as a substitute for the Eitz HaChaim? That's the difference. If you eat the Eitz HaDas after the Eitz HaChaim, it's a conduit. The mind is a beautiful conduit. The heart is a beautiful conduit. Parameters and boundaries protect the integrity of your life force, like the wire that protects the electricity. And you have to have protection. But when the boundaries are not to protect the energy, the boundaries are to replace the energy, to substitute the energy. There's only boundaries, there's nothing outside of that. All I have is boundaries, really? Anything else? Is there anything that you're connecting to? No, I don't know, I just have boundaries, I just have walls. What do you protect? Ich weiß nicht. The main thing is I got walls. Yeah. The storefront I have, the merchandise, wer darf es? Yeah. Once he ate from the Eitz HaDas, now he says he can't eat from the Eitz HaChaim anymore. Why? What are you hearing? What are you hearing in that?
So why don't we teach kids Eitz HaChaim first and then let them do Eitz HaDas?
We're teaching all the kids in this room about the Eitz HaChaim, including myself. That's what we're trying to do. Sometimes you have to grow up to realize you're a kid. Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. That's part of the Eitz HaChaim when we realize we're children. That was the desire. The desire was eat from the Eitz HaChaim and then eat from the Eitz HaDas. It wasn't a prohibition against Eitz HaDas for eternity. Don't eat it before you eat from the tree of life.
Makes sense because Rebbe wanted to have the Shabbos.
Yeah, that's what it says. That's going to be the whole thing with Shabbos here. It says in Medrash that if Moshe, if Adam would have waited 3 hours and come Shabbos, he could have used the vine and make wine and use it for Kiddush, and Fakir Eitz HaDas would have been sublimated. But they ate it prematurely, 3 hours before Shabbos. Chava squeezed out the grapes, gave Adam the wine, and he made Kiddush before Plag. All the problems started with Plag, yeah? Oh, Ta'ameh, that's only Kugel, not the Eitz HaDas. Yeah, Ta'ameh can also be part of the problem, yeah. V'hainu sha'avoidi be'Eitz HaDas shenyoni levarer berurim, because the avoida is to eat from the Eitz HaDas. The Eitz HaDas is levarer berurim. Levarer berurim means to be able to separate. You need to separate. Ela shemitzad Eitz HaDas b'vad efshali is yenika. But from the Eitz HaDas alone, without the Eitz HaChaim, there could be a yinika. What does it mean, a yinika? Yinika means that the external forces get nurture, and it leaks. It leaks from there. So first, you need the Eitz HaChaim, which allows you to go outside of finiteness, which is the complete surrender of any button and any ego and any expectation to the point that you're in completely life itself. And how could you be life itself? Only if you're in a place of infinity. And how could you be in a place of infinity if there's no way that you define yourself? If I define myself by anything, it's not infinite. The only definition we have for infinity is no definition. We don't have definitions for God. Even the word God is a definition. Right? In Chassidus, it's always called Ein Sof. Ein Sof. Why Ein Sof? Because God is not a right. We use it, but it's not the right term. Yud Hey Vav Hey is Haya, Hoive Yiyah. He was, is, will be, all in one space. In other words, it transcends time, it transcends space, it transcends matter. So what does that look like? The answer is nothing. No thing. It looks like no thing. So that requires the surrender of every definition of myself. Who am I? I don't know. Kayach ma. I don't know who I am. You want to tell me? Lo yisasa lecha kol pesach v'chol tmuna. Moshe Rabbeinu says, don't make a picture of God. What does it mean, don't make a picture of God? Don't define it. And he uses the word in Asar Sebes, lo yisasa lecha pesach, which also means don't make a picture of yourself. It's the same thing. Making a picture of yourself is making a picture of God. Don't reduce yourself to a picture to it. Lo yisasa lecha pesach v'chol tmuna. Don't turn your true divinity into a picture. The moment I turn it into a picture, this is who I am. Now, of course, I have to survive and protect it. The gift of life cracking us open is let go of the picture. Let go. Throw away the picture. Throw it into the fire. Don't make an image. No images. What do we care if you make an image? Who cares if God has an image? Why, is he so insecure? If you make a statue of me, so what? I have to kill you because you made a statue that doesn't look good? Every child makes pictures of their parents when they're 3 years old. They're horrible pictures. You put them on the refrigerator and you make believe they deserve a Nobel Prize. You look chaloshes in the picture. It's not even you. Who cares? Your kid made a picture. You're happy. So why does God care if we could? It should have been Asar Sadibis. Kindalach, make pictures of me and put it on the refrigerator. Because the moment you make a picture of Hashem, you're making a picture of yourself. You become a graven image. The moment you become a graven image, you're not in touch with life. You're still image. I'm paralyzed. Of course I need to protect myself now. Now all my relationships are coming from that place. Is it good for me? Is it not good for me? It's good for me. It's good for me. So my love is there. My awe is there. My toid, everything. And then there could be right away a yinika. Now I'm living in a place of feed my ego that needs oxygen. So the question is, who feeds it better? You feed it good today, tomorrow you don't feed it, I go to you, you feed it. There was a Jewish comedian, I told you once, he said, I have principles, and if you don't like them, I have other principles. Right, it's classic, that's Eitz Hadas. I have principles, but tomorrow I have other principles.
I just realized that pestle is the same OCS as selfie.
Pestle and selfie, exactly. Very good, a pestle is a selfie. A selfie of you, a selfie of Hashem. Now, are we against pictures? We're not against pictures, but don't eat from the Eitz Hadas before you eat from the Eitz Chayim. Don't look at your picture to find out who you are. Huh? Yeah. People look at their picture. Who am I? Yeah. Who am I? From the oh, I look good. Okay, I'm handsome. Okay, people are gonna like me. Good. And whatever that picture looks, not necessarily a physical picture. It's looking at the outside to define the inside. And it's a very normal thing. It's a way of surviving. It's not, there's no judgment here. It was so powerful that even Adam and Chava, who were the greatest people, they were created by Hashem himself, couldn't withstand this. It's important to understand that. They couldn't withstand this. Because to live in the Eitz HaChayim takes so much surrender. You have to have compassion. It's surrendering every picture. Who wants to do that? What does that look like? Giving everything up. You know, if somebody would come to me and say, Yosef Yitzchak Jacobson, control, all, delete everything you ever did in your life. Everything you ever were in your life or are in your life. Delete everything. Surrender it all. That's the beginning of this Avodah. And you're like, no way? You're crazy? So we choose prison because at least there's supposed security. It's like prisoners who don't want to go out of prison after 30, 40 years. You know, they have already they're considered the Ziknei Ha'eda. You have all these stories, people who were there 60 years, they don't want to go out. There was a story of a prisoner, you know. He was already in his 80s and he was eligible, and he went to the court and he asked them to keep him in prison. And they gave him another 7 years voluntarily. Ma'aser Shah, you could look it up. He killed somebody in 1911 or somebody, and he went out of prison like in 1982 or something. Crazy story. He stayed, they gave him another 7 years in prison. So what do I have outside of prison? In prison, B'chachashiv guy, chief rabbi, everybody respects him. He's older than everybody else. He's the senior. He's going to come out to the free world. What's going to be? Ashmatan idiot ashnar. What's it going to be? Prison, chashiv mensch, Torah gdula b'makam echad. Security, insurance, health insurance. What do you need it? What do you need it for? But it's such a metaphor for life. And we can understand it. Rabbi Isaac, verstehst du, was tut sich? Ah? Kein nicht. Der Rebbe nicht gehad was? Eine Neshama Chadasha. Ich bin nicht kein Maven. So you hear, this is what? He says, this is every single day. It's not in the beginning of every day. Shoinyan haydo bitul shalamayla metam v'das ulamayla b'medidav hagbala. V'rak la'achrei zeba ha'izbainenus shabetfila. O b'frat b'psukidazim no birchas krishma la'achrei hagdamas habitul dafka. Every day you make the same choice. Do you start with Eitz Hadas, and then you'll never get to the Eitz HaChaim, or do you start with Eitz HaChaim? So he says, how does a Jew start the day? Moidani lefanach. The word moida is surrender. We touch moida, thank. But he's saying moida is something deeper. Moida is like hoida, like you acquiesce, like moidim chachamim l'Reb Meir. And how does davening start? Hoidu l'Hashem keru v'shmai. So you see, the moment you open your eyes and the moment you start davening, it's the same word. Moida and hoidu. Why? That's Eitz HaChaim. It's surrendering everything. Moida, I surrender. Moidani, I woke up. I could go to my phone. I could figure things out. The first word is moidani lefanach. Why? Shechzarta b'nishmasi. It's not just I thank you because giving me back my soul. It's much deeper. Moidani, I surrender everything because you just gave me back my soul. How does that explain? Because who am I? It's your soul. You just gave me back. You just gave me a piece of yourself. So you got to be crazy not to surrender. You just got a soul of infinity. So what do you want me to go into a place of control and hijack it? You got to be a moron. Surrender is the most normal thing you can do. It's called bliss. Let go of everything and just be that soul. Why should you want to detach from God? Why do you want to do that? And then I have to chase my tail a whole day, investing money in a stock that doesn't exist, called the ego. Good luck. It's a Ponzi scheme. So now I need your attention, now I need your attention, now I need his attention, now I need this. Now I'm chasing everybody I'm chasing besides being in flow. That's Maida. And then you start davening Hoidu. He says, but don't stay, that's the Eitz HaChaim. Then you go to the Eitz Hadas. What's the Eitz Hadas? His Beinenus. His Beinenus means, of course you should use your mind. You have to use your mind. That's the whole process of appreciating the world, of appreciating the self, of appreciating the divine that is manifested in the world, where you do use your mind, but that's after the Eitz HaChaim. Now the Eitz Hadas is a channel, it's not a trap, it's not a substitute. Of course you have to have boundaries. I'm not Medidav Hagbala, there's no Hagbala, so now if you sit on my head, what should I say? There's no Medidav Hagbala? Medidav Hagbala is precious if it's not a substitute for the Eitz HaChaim, if it's a continuum of the Eitz HaChaim. Yeah. You wrote that. A boundary versus a barrier. How do you know the difference? Pashat. When the boundary is a continuum of the Eitz HaChaim, you can also let it go of the boundary. You can open it up. It's flexible. When it's not, I will never open it up. You will not get through. It's a wall, and I will fortify it more. Kol doidi doifik, until finally the walls come crumbling down. And it's a gift. Fortunate are the people whose lives are not working out the way we wanted them. And then there's another disappointment, and another disappointment. And they're like, God, why do you hate me? Why do you hate me? Am I the most evil man who ever lived? Am I the most evil woman who ever lived? And I can't answer that question, but all I know is that question is part of our ego. That question is part of our ego. It's positioning myself versus Hashem and saying, come on, this is the life I want, this is life. When you could surrender everything, you could say, maybe all of this was the greatest gift I ever got in order to be able to go to the Eitz HaChaim from the Eitz HaDas. This doesn't justify, and it doesn't explain, and it doesn't rationalize, and it's not giving answers for pain, and it's not explaining why this person went through this. I don't know, and I don't think we know any of this. That's all Eitz HaDas questions. The Rebbe is not answering questions here. He's saying the answer to your questions are not going to come through answering your questions. The answer to your questions are going to come through going from Eitz HaDas to Eitz HaChaim. As long as I'm looking to answer questions, I'm stuck in Eitz HaDas. So this guy has a better answer, this guy has a foolish answer, this guy has a brilliant answer. Even the most brilliant answer will not bring me the healing I'm looking for. Because the struggle here is in the very question. It's not that answer, that answer. In the Eitz HaChaim, it's not about answers or questions anymore. You don't need an answer because you don't have a question, because you are life. Why it happens, I don't know. When you're just in it, when you are just a manifestation of life, you are life itself. It's not a question, and not because there's no pain, and not because it makes sense, and not because there's a good pilpul, and not because I figured it. It's in a puzzle. It's not. There's no puzzle here. There's a clarity that comes from being Hashem Himself. I guess that's really what it is. It's a certain clarity. And it's a clarity that comes with a lot of tears, and it comes with a lot of grief, and it comes with a lot of surrender. Infinite surrender. But it's the only thing in which you come back to yourself. Everything else is chasing something that will disappoint you. Until I'm not ready to graduate from the Eitz HaDas to the Eitz HaChaim, I will just make more puzzles and search for bigger puzzles. So now I'll go to this shia, that shia, I'll find this guru, I'll find this rabbi, I'll find this tzaddik, I'll find this therapist, I'm looking for another Eitz HaDas. You have an Eitz HaDas, I'll find a better Eitz HaDas. And another Eitz HaDas, another Eitz HaDas, another Eitz HaDas. And he says it starts off with Moida Ani, and Haidul Hashem. That's a nakuda of complete bittul. And then now go eat Eitz HaDas. Now go enjoy the Eitz HaDas. Go eat Eitz HaDas. Gesundheit. Now, when did all this happen? It happened Friday, right before Shabbos. If the Eitz HaDas would have been eaten on Shabbos, it would have been a continuation of the Eitz HaChaim. But the Eitz HaDas was eaten before the Eitz HaChaim, before Shabbos. So now when Adam wants to eat from the Eitz HaChaim, Hashem says, now you want to do, when Adam wants to eat from the Eitz HaChaim, after he eats from the Eitz HaDas, he now wants to take the Eitz HaChaim and contaminate it too. Now the Eitz HaChaim is going to be serving the Eitz HaDas. Oh, do me a favor, get out of Gan Eden. Let's at least keep the Eitz HaChaim pure, so that when the person is ready, he'll be able to touch the Eitz HaChaim. If you'll eat now from the Eitz HaChaim, remember, Adam is connected to the essence. So what a person does affects everything. If Adam would have eaten from the Eitz HaChaim, what would have happened? The Eitz HaChaim would have been forever tainted by the Eitz HaDas. In practical words, it means that even your deepest bittul would be part of your ego. And that's the end of everything. That's a death sentence. Because you're doing bittul in order to have a better ego. Yeah. Now I have the perfection of bittul too, you know that. I'm worked out too. I'm healthy too. If Adam would eat from the Eitz HaChaim after he eats from the Eitz HaDas, it would have been part of the Eitz HaDas. Eitz HaDas' search for more ego. Now I have Eitz HaChaim too. I control God too. I have Him too. I have infinity too. Ich hab der Shleimus euch. I have the perfection of being nothing. You know that. Huh? Yeah. And he won't come for 2 years, huh? He says, I was looking at him when I said it, so he's not going to come for 2 years. Right? This means that it would be no pure nekuda anymore. Everything would be tainted. Because Adam didn't eat from the Eitz HaChaim, so the Eitz HaChaim remains Eitz HaChaim. To get there, it takes Mesiras Nefesh. You have to surrender. But when you surrender, you're going to touch it. If you want to really understand what's happening, yeah, really, all the Maamarim that you're learning, this is the secret. Everything that Alter Rebbe teaches, the whole Chassidus is the Eitz HaChaim. And what anyone who's sensitive feels that the Eitz HaDas doesn't affect it. It's there. That only happened because Adam didn't eat from the Eitz HaChaim. There's a space in which the bittul remains pure. That when you're ready, you'll go there, you'll see it over there. And it's in every person's life. I could be chasing my tail and my ego my whole life. But the Eitz HaChaim remains pure. When you're ready and you crack open and you're going to eat from the Eitz HaChaim, you'll know it's there. It was there. It was always there, and it's not tainted. And no cynicism could have ever contaminated it. And that's basically what everybody who's here or is listening and is sensitive that feels in every Maamar. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling that there's no Eitz HaDas here. This just came into my head. I'm not even explaining any of this. It just came into my head. I know that's what I'm feeling. You feel it. You know it energetically. Of course we have egos and our insecurities, but you know there's a space where you could feel there's no corruption here. It doesn't lend itself to corruption. It's not that there's no corruption. It doesn't lend itself to corruption. Do you understand the difference? It doesn't lend itself to corruption. Some things are not corrupt, but they lend themselves to corruption. What's called in Chassidus, there could be a yenika. It's not corrupt, but there could be a yenika. A yenika means somebody could leak. Right? A yenika means nursing. A mother's milk is for her baby, but somebody else could take and hijack the milk. Right? We do it with cows all the time. Cows have milk in order to feed their calf. What do? We take the milk for ourselves. That's called yenika. Klipa comes in and hijacks it. Some things are not corrupt, but they lend themselves to corruption. And then there's things, Eitz HaChaim cannot lend itself to corruption. There has to be a space that doesn't lend itself to corruption. If you try to be yonik from it, there's nothing there. You can't be yonik from it. It remains pure Ein Sof. You can't hijack it. You could think you're hijacking it. There's people who could learn things. We're not talking about that in their own dreams. But essentially you feel that it's a type of energy that doesn't lend itself to that space. That's the healing. That's why it's so healing. It's healing because you feel that. Your soul feels that. It's not like I'm not corrupt because I'm a good guy, because I'm moral, because I'm a gentleman, because I have good values, which is all nice. I'm not chas v'shalom knocking good people who are moral and menschlich and ehrlich. But it's very often a place, I'm a mensch, I'm a good person, I believe that God is here and I want him to reward him. And deep down, it's really coming from the nekud of the neshama, deep down. But in manifestation, I could be used. Things could be manipulated. Even good people and good messages could be manipulated. So now, based on all of this, we'll really appreciate this whole story with the Mekoshesh. And the real problem was B'yom HaShabbos. That it was B'yom HaShabbos. And suddenly we'll see how the pshat in the Zohar about comparing the trees is really the literal pshat. At surface, it's like a funny thing. It's like, oh, here we come again with Kabbalah. It says he gathered wood or he harvested wood. He wasn't comparing trees, sorry. The Zohar says, no, he's comparing Eitz HaDas to the Chaim. Shan, you're shekayach with your Kabbalah again. That's all because we ate so much from the Eitz HaDas that our whole Judaism is one big Eitz HaDas. The Zohar is trying to teach you about the Eitz HaChaim. So every pasuk, it says, of course I know the literal interpretation. I'm explaining to you what's really the literal interpretation.
Wow.
Huh? He's saying I finally spilled the beans. I'm not spilling any beans, I'm just channeling what it says in the Maamar. The whole Yiddishkeit could be an Eitz HaDas. So everything is with Eitz HaDas. The whole idea of Pnimi Satayr is the Yin of Eitz HaChaim. So it's showing you what the real meaning of it is. It's not a divorced, it's like a pshetel from the Zohar, it's a pshetel, some cute thing with a remez, with a gematria. Where's Reb David? We need a gematria for the Eitzim. So you get another gematria with another gematria. It's everything we're learning is also the way people understand Judaism. I could learn the whole Yiddishkeit from an Eitz HaDas perspective. This cheshbon, that cheshbon, that cheshbon. This guy does it with the Chasam Sofer. This guy does it with the Yismach Moshe. This guy does it with Arizal. This guy does it with Apilpul Ahead, Apilpul Ahead. But you understand, it's all in the egoic reality of life. It's puzzles, it's mathematics, it's good stuff. And it's nice. It's also nice, and it has good messages. It doesn't tell anybody to shoot animals and to shoot and to kill. It tells people to have a karsa toiv and to give tzedakah and to learn Torah and to be a mensch and to be mevater. That's why the Eitz Hadas is not bad. The Eitz Hadas is in Gan Eden. It's all Gan Eden. But it's Gan Eden, like we learned in the Maamar Sois Tasses. Ziv HaShchina, right? Al menas lekabel pras. I want a piece. I want a piece of you that I could have. Just give me a piece. He speaks there. You remember Nashim, the Chilik, the two Avos, right? Lekabel pras, shalom menas lekabel pras. In Atzmus, there's no peace. It's not pras anymore. You don't have anything. Are you ready not to have anything? Now you got to be crazy. Of course, but it's without that goal. It's true when you're ready to are you ready to have nothing?
Not as a goal.
You'll have everything. But if that's the goal, then it's another Eitz Hadas. That's the whole point.
It's the biggest ego.
The biggest one. I'll have nothing, and then I can have everything. I surrender. Yeah.
In order
To have everything. L'pol, you have everything. That's the point. The point is not to punish and crush. This is not about sadism. It's mamish the opposite. It's about life. Eitz HaChayim. You're going from the Eitz HaDas to Eitz HaChayim. You're going from death to life. What happens the moment Adam and Chava eat from the Eitz HaDas? Death sentence. It's not a punishment. The moment I go into a space of ego, of course I'm going to die. How could I not die? I was never alive. Death just means I was never alive. It's just showing. And the part that's alive never dies. Yaakov Avinu loy meis. Yaakov Avinu loy meis.
So why did they kill the Mekoshesh?
He killed himself. The Mekoshesh killed himself. The death sentence was just a manifestation of what was happening.
But it says that
I know. All the mises are that way. The death sentence is a visceral manifestation of what happened internally. It was already a dead man walking. In the midbar, everything was the function of it was to go. Matan Torah was to go back to the Eitz HaChayim. So to be in the flow. The moment you're out of flow, it's. If I'm a wire and I'm stuck to the source of electricity, you take out the wire, whatever, it's finished. Now what you do with the wire, okay, you'll figure it out. Whatever, put it in a museum, whatever you want to do with it. So here he finished. Regular trees, not any specific trees. Comes Reb Chaim Vital, and even here he says, Eitzim is ayin. 70, it's talking about the 70 spiritual angels of the 70 nations. But let's explain it on a literal level. So the Alter Rebbe says in Likud Torah, there's a Maamar Mekoshesh, Shecheta Mekoshesh Hainu, She'oiker Davar Migidula. What's the literal idea of Mekoshesh? You harvest it. On Shabbos, you're not allowed to harvest. The wood is attached to the tree, you fell the tree, you harvest the tree, or you harvest branches, and you made lumber. So it's the malach of koitzer. What does that mean? Something is growing. It's organically connected to its source. You uprooted it on Shabbos. What's the problem? A whole week you do that. We cut apples and we cut grapes, and that's how we live. We cut grain, that's how we live. But on Shabbos you're not allowed to. Why? The idea of koitzer is a cosmic idea. Everything is connected to the source. Everything is a reflection of the source. Everything is bottled to the source because that's what gives it life. Harvesting spiritually means you're taking the yesh and you're turning it into a separate identity. You're cutting it off from the source. Everything is really a flow of divinity, Ein Sof. And therefore it's bottled to Ein Sof. It doesn't have a Metzias. What does koitzer mean? You cut it off. And you look at it and you say, oh, you are your own man. You're your own entity. A whole week, it's part of the Avodah. We live in Yesh. Shabbos, it's a death. It's an inyan of mystery. Shabbos, it's a death sentence. The whole inyan of Shabbos is Bittul HaYesh. The whole inyan of Shabbos is a day in which A whole day you're in flow. That's what the avodah of Shabbos is. A whole week, it's working with the yesh, bringing Shabbos into the week. But Shabbos is silence. Bekushi tiru l'abed v'torah b'Shabbos. U'pirush noisev, now comes the second pshat in the Zohar. Shehikesh es Eitz HaChaim ve'Eitz HaDas leidei ze mehem raf. He compares the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz HaDas to see which one is greater. What type of question is that? U'pirush b'zarei chama shehechlit she'Eitz HaDas urav. Kivan shavoyde be'Eitz HaDas yigdei liyoser. The Zarei Chama says that Mekoshesh Eitzim, actually what the Zohar means is he decided that the Eitz HaDas is greater, because to work with the Eitz HaDas is much more important than the Eitz HaChayim. Mekoshesh Eitzim actually said, of course the Eitz HaDas is greater, that's where the avodah is. Eitz HaChayim, who needs that? It's good. The Eitz HaDas is the troubled child. Of course the avodah with the Eitz HaDas is more important. That's the avodah Sabirudim. L'chayr, it's a deep word. The Mekoshesh Eitzim is a saying of deep word. Dir b'tachtainim. You got to work with Eitz HaDas. But now we'll understand that the two pirushim, harvesting wood and comparing the trees, are connected. Ki ובעניין הספירס הוא הפירוד הספירס המלכוס מבחינה זו. כמו שכתוב רבינו בחיה, שמקושש הוא מקו שש. Mekoshesh, mikav shesh, ritzoynei loymar, shehifrid be'inyin shisha k'tzavas ha'elyoyin b'chines zo. Haynu shalayum shech b'chines malchus b'chines tiferes. Ha'koilo shiva k'tzavas v'koilo gam amshach b'chines ha'keser shem shachas b'tiferes ha'mudad dem tziiso. Hina yideize nasa gam inyin ha'beis, shru kepirush ha'beis v'mekoshesh eitzim, shehifrid es yesh ha'nivra mi'mekoiroi, va'ad le'mekoshesh eitzim b'yom ha'shabbos kipshutai. You hear the word? When he compared the Eitz HaDas to the Eitz HaChayim, what is he doing? Are you greater? Are you greater? Are you greater? The very idea of comparing the two trees, that's the source of all the challenges. The challenges is he's calling it two trees. He's mafrid the Eitz HaDas from the Eitz HaChayim. The emes is there's nothing separate from the Eitz HaChayim. That's the truth. The Eitz HaDas secret is that it's part of the Eitz HaChayim. But in order to know that, you first have to eat from the Eitz HaChayim. The Mekoshesh Eitzim is now comparing. Suddenly the Eitz HaDas got its own ego, its own identity. Now who's greater? He separated the two by comparing them. What does this mean? What this means is he went into the place of Medida v'Hagbalah. What's the result of that? The result of that is harvesting. What's harvesting? Harvesting is you take the yesh, you separate it from the ayin, you turn it into an independent reality, and now you just killed it. You gave a definition. Huh? Yeah. He perpetuated that Eitz HaDas and went on Shabbos. Went in the Midbar, where the whole idea was to go back. So what happens here is, essentially, what's the idea of tearing out the plant or harvesting? The yesh is created. Hashem made the world, but it's part of ayin. It's part of bittul. It's always surrendered to the source, and then it's alive. The moment, we all know, you pluck a rose, it dies. You could keep it in your house for 3 days, but it's dead. Why is it dead? Because you just detached it from its source. We think we're protecting the yesh by detaching it. No, that's the killing of the yesh. The only way the yesh is alive is if it's connected to the ayin, if it's bottled to the ayin. Bittul means graduating from finiteness to infinity, from death to life. Going back to life. The moment he separates the two trees, that's essentially the idea of harvesting something from its source. I'm not anymore an ayin. And now I have a plant. So imagine you pluck the rose, now you want to keep it. So now you put it in water, and you put it in a vase, and it dies. So you put it in another vase, you put in chemicals, you put in more chemicals, you put in chemicals. And then after a year, the poor rose, okay, I'm dead, bye! You could have just left it in the earth and it would have been alive. But I don't want to leave it in the earth. I want to take it. I want to own it. I want the rose in my house. I don't want to surrender. I want to control the rose. I want to control it. I get it. So I go into Medida v'Hagbalah. And that's what Rabbeinu B'chaya says, Mekoshesh is mikav shesh. There's 6 midos. Zah. Then there's malchus. Femininity, malchus goes into the world. Mekoshesh, he went out of Kav Sheish and he went into Malchus. The yichud of Zah and Malchus is the yichud of bittul and yesh, of yesh and ayin. But he separated mikav sheish, he went out from the 6 ksavos, which is chesed through yisoid, that instead of malchus being a flow from tiferes, which is the middle amar, and it goes all the way to keser, which is the bittul amayim medidav hagbalah. This is back to the whole Maamar, how he explained everything in the source. That malchus goes into biyah, malchus goes into the klippa. But instead of connecting the two, he separated the two. Mekoshesh, mikav sheish. That was the whole idea with Shabbos. Shabbos is the time that Malchus goes up. The whole world feels on Shabbos, the Nivrayim, if they're sensitive, they know that on Shabbos there's a bittul telekus. This allows you, even in the weekdays, to have the bittul. Even on Shabbos, you're a Mekoshesh eitzim. In the weekday, that is the struggle of Eitz Hadas. But Shabbos is the day of Eitz HaChayim. That's the whole tachlis of Shabbos. You don't harvest on Shabbos. On Shabbos, you're always in flow. That's why all the malachas of Shabbos, essentially, is acknowledging the yesh as a separate entity. That's not Shabbos. In middle of the week, yeah, I harvest, yeah. Everything on Shabbos is changing the world. That's what malachas of Shabbos are. You're allowed to schlep a couch on Shabbos in your house. It's much harder than planting. But that's not changing reality. The malachas of Shabbos is a creative change in reality. What does that mean? That's outside of the flow of bittul. Shabbos, it's chilul Shabbos. It's a death sentence. Sunday, it could be a mitzvah. You understand? Sometimes dealing with yesh is a mitzvah. Sometimes dealing with a yesh is death. Because now is a place of bittul. You're in flow. The electricity is flowing through you. Don't change that. That's why Shabbos is such sensitive energy. You took something from Rishus HaRabim to Rishus HaYachid. Okay, Grosse Gedula, what God can't survive anymore. You planted, you put on a fire, so you put on a fire. Nu was geschehen? You went out of the whole flow of reality. There's a death in the world that came in, yeah. So he says, V'zeu, and he finishes, and that's why he says they were in the desert. Rashi says it was the first Shabbos, so it was before Matan Torah. Whether it was before or after was the place that they were, where Matan Torah happened, to heal the world. In the Midbar, where Shabbos was introduced and viscerally felt, this person went into the Eitz Hadas, separating the two. That's how he started. He asked in the question, he asked in the beginning, the order of the pasuk, Vayiyu b'nei Yisrael b'midbar. That's the emphasis. Vayimtzu ish mekoshesh eitzim. When b'yoyim HaShabbos? The source of everything is he compared the Eitz HaChaim and the Eitz Hadas, meaning the Eitz Hadas became its own entity. That's the nekuda. The real shayrish is, yeah, you could, but the real shayrish is he went into Medidav Hagabala. He couldn't surrender Medidav Hagabala. Now, in his mind, it was idealistic, because the avodah is to deal with limitations. God is infinite. He doesn't need me to be infinite. God needs me to be finite. Gewaldig. It's a gewaldig word. It's a dahoiben word. He needs me to be infinite. Why was I created? It's a good word. But, not on Shabbos A and B. The reason he wants you to be finite is because you're infinite. because you're infinite. It's infinity coming into finiteness, not finiteness replacing infinity. When finiteness replaces infinity, then you're detached. And when you're detached, then I can't even do the avodah anymore. The only way you can do the avodah l'mayla ma'agbala is you have to find the core of your soul, because the core of your soul is chavuka udvuka bach. It's embracing. And it's connected to you. It's connected to the essence, so it's infinite. And this is the essence of what Kabbalah Sel means. Kabbalah Sel, like we say in the Hoshainus of Sukkot, Toyenes ulach Even this word, we say in Hashanah of Sukkot, in the Alter Rebbe Siddur, it's the third day, other people say it another day. Toyenes ulach, the Jewish people contain your yoke. Oil is a yoke. Toyenes yechida liyachtach, one to unify you. So the Rebbe teaches it's the same word. How do you reach yechida liyachtach? Through toyenes ulach, through Kabbalah Sel. What's Kabbalah Sel? Kabbalah Sel is surrender. Accepting the yoke. What does accepting the yoke really mean? Most people think Kabbalah, you accept the yoke, it's like pressure. No. Kabbalah Sel really means the bittul of surrendering everything. I surrender. What does that bring? That brings to Yechid, that's Moida'ani, that brings Yechid Liyachtach, that reveals who you really are. Surrender helps you become you. Who are you? Chavuko dvuka bach, toyenes ulach Yechid Liyachtach. How do you reveal? This is all from the Hashainas. Sukkos. How do you reveal the chavuku dvukabach? Through toyenes ulach, which that way you reveal the yechida liyachdach, and then your avoid is for shalom ma'alam hagbala, because that's who you are. That's the core of your soul. So of course you find yourself this way. You find yourself because the real self is completely infinite. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. The Rebbe said the Maamar Shabbos Parsha Shlach Mevarchim Tammuz Tovshin Yud Gimel, 1953. Mevarchim HaChodesh Tammuz, the Shabbos before Rosh Chodesh Tammuz.
The world had this since 1953. We've had this in the world.
Huh?
He didn't want to take it.
You saying why did Adam fall prey to it if he didn't have an ego? So yeah, obviously the Nachash convinced Adam and Chava that, like he said, that the Eitz Hadas is kitayva huleinayim, that their main avodah is going to be in the Eitz Hadas. The Nachash actually told them, you need to go into an ego. Not to have an ego, you'll just be like God. God doesn't need another God. So they chose the Eitz Hadas. And in many ways, they gave us this whole avodah. You couldn't have this Maamar if there was no Eitz Hadas.
It was actually good, it was correct Eitz, but just not on time.
In other words, the whole avodah is because of that, because there's an Eitz Hadas, because we ate from the Eitz Hadas. So we have to work it through. If Adam and Chava would have eaten from the Eitz Chaim and Shabbos eaten from the Eitz Hadas, then we wouldn't have the schus to learn the Maamar. It does say that the aliyah that comes after the Eitz Hadas is much deeper than it would have been without it. Of course, obviously it was part of the plan, yeah. But the way the plan had to be executed was through them. If you understand. In other words, if we would really know, this is back to what the Shir Shop, if we would really know that God is to blame for the Eitz Hadas, it wouldn't be the Eitz Hadas. It would just be another infinite experience. So part of it is, it's our fault.